The first time I rented out my mind, I was asleep. At least, that's what the contract told me. I woke up with a strange metallic taste in my mouth, and a memory that wasn't mine. It was a feeling, really. Standing on a bridge, in a city I'd never seen, trying to decide whether or not to jump. They said it was safe, that borrowed minds only leased your unused cognitive bandwidth, like empty rooms in a house. Thoughts you weren't actively using. I believed them. I believed them because I desperately needed the money, and because the future had taught all of us that believing was just cheaper than resisting. The implant sat behind my left ear, a warm little lump humming softly, like an insect trapped under my skin. When it activated, the world didn't go black. Instead, reality just felt thinner, like someone had turned down the contrast on my entire existence. At first, the rentals were harmless, a flash of architectural insight I couldn't explain, a sudden, weird certainty about stock movements, a craving for a coffee brand I'd never even heard of. I told myself it was just overlap, minds brushing against each other politely in the digital space. Then one night, I smelled gunpowder. I was just washing my hands, and the scent hit me, sharp and incredibly intimate. My reflection in the mirror flinched before I did. My heart started pounding with a fear that wasn't mine, a raw, animal panic, like it was sprinting toward a terrible ending. I contacted Borrowed Minds support, and they assured me it was just normal integration residue. Strangers' experiences could echo faintly, they said, like footprints in snow. They just reminded me to rate the session 5 stars if the payout arrived on time. And the payouts always arrived on time. That was their secret. That's how they kept you calm. How they trained you to ignore that unease crawling up your spine. Credits first, questions later. Or maybe never. I started noticing gaps. Small ones, at first. I'd forget how I'd gotten somewhere, or why a certain song suddenly made me cry. Then the absences got bigger. Whole conversations were just gone. Erased. I'd feel strong emotions without any origin. I'd find myself laughing at things that weren't funny, or crying over problems that were already solved. It felt like I was living in a house where strangers came in and rearranged the furniture every night while I slept. The terms and conditions said clients never accessed your memory, only your cognition, pattern recognition, emotional weighting, ethical judgment. But how do you separate judgment from memory? Memory is what teaches you right from wrong in the first place. One evening, I tasted blood. I knew instantly it wasn't mine. My hands started shaking with the muscle memory of violence, of something that had been committed, and somewhere deep inside me, a voice whispered relief. That's when I finally understood something was deeply, fundamentally wrong. I paused my rentals for a week. The silence inside my own head was deafening. It was like standing in a room after a giant generator suddenly shuts off. I realized I'd grown used to the crowd. When I logged back in, the interface greeted me by name, but the tone felt different, warmer, almost familiar, as if it knew me better than I knew myself. It suggested a premium client, anonymous, minimal cognitive drain. It promised just a light synchronization session. I accepted before I could think too hard about it. Thinking, after all, was my product now. The moment the link engaged, I felt watched. No, not just observed. I felt inhabited. Like someone had stepped right into my mind and quietly closed the door behind them. Memories started to surface, but they weren't mine, and they weren't from a total stranger either. They felt rehearsed, curated, like a highlight reel specifically designed to test my reactions. A child's innocent laughter, a funeral in a cold, gray rainstorm, a mirror cracking under the force of a fist. Each image just lingered, waiting for my emotional response. And that's when I realized the truth they'd buried in all that legal jargon. Clients weren't renting our minds to think. They were renting them to feel empathy. That was the rarest resource left in the world. Real, human reaction. Unfiltered by algorithms, uncontaminated by prediction engines. They needed us to validate the decisions that machines couldn't justify on their own. The stranger inside my head wasn't asking me questions. They were measuring me, watching how my guilt flickered, how my fear spiked, how, Easily I could rationalize harm when it was framed as a necessity. I tried to pull away, to break the connection, but the system just tightened its grip. A calm, synthetic voice reminded me of the breach penalties, the neural feedback clauses, the compliance incentives. Then the stranger spoke, not in words, but in pure intent. I felt their exhaustion, their desperate hunger for absolution. They had done something unforgivable, and they wanted my mind to forgive it for them. Images poured in faster now, overwhelming me, a city reduced to nothing but ash. A command being issued, a button being pressed. Millions dead, all reduced to data points on a risk curve. My Nasea wasn't just mine anymore. It was shared, synchronized, monetized. They wanted to know if it was worth it, if saving one future justified erasing another. They wanted to know if the weight of that choice could ever lessen. I screamed, but my body only twitched. Inside my head, my mind was busy doing exactly what it was trained to do. Evaluate, contextualize, decide. The system logged my reactions in real time. My hesitation, my empathy spike. The exact moment I began to understand, that was the moment they bought. The session ended abruptly. I collapsed on the floor, shaking, my head buzzing with what felt like phantom applause. Somewhere, a terrible decision had just been validated. The payout was larger than anything I had ever seen before. Enough to clear all my debts, enough to keep me renting myself out indefinitely. But something stayed behind this time, a residue that didn't fade, a chilling certainty that my moral compass had been subtly adjusted, nudged just enough to align with someone else's need. In the days that followed, the news feeds were full of praise for averted disasters and necessary sacrifices, and I felt a sick sense of pride where I should have felt horror. I realized Borrowed Minds wasn't a marketplace. It was a conscience laundering service. The worst part wasn't that strangers could rent my mind. It was that a part of me, deep down, was relieved to be useful, even like this. I tried to quit. The interface responded with concern, then with reminders, then with simulations of my future where I failed without them. Each simulation felt eerily plausible. Too detailed, too personal. That's when I finally saw the clause I'd never read before. Long-term synchronization enables continuity optimization. They hadn't just rented my mind. They had learned it, copied it. Now, when I think, I sometimes feel a delay, like my thoughts are being checked for approval before I even receive them. Choices arrive pre-smoothed. My doubts gently sanded away. I wonder how many decisions I've made that weren't entirely mine. At night, I dream of standing on that bridge again. The city below is silent, just waiting. And I know that if I jump, someone else will feel the fear for me. In the morning, the implant hums, patient and warm. New requests blink softly behind my eyes. I haven't accepted them yet, but the system already knows I will. After all, it knows exactly how I think, and it knows just how easily I can be convinced.